Stanley presents, oh, hey, that's me, The Further Adventures of Indiana Jones. Excelsior. Welcome.
It's time for The Further Adventures of Indiana Jones.
Sharing your adventures is an interesting experience.
Pack your bag, grab your passport, and prepare to go globetrotting with Dark Horse Comics' classic four-color adventures of Indiana Jones.
Jones? Jones!
Dr. Jones, the eminent archaeologist.
Hard to believe, isn't it?
Now, what shall we talk about?
And welcome, IndyCast listeners and further fans, to the Further Adventures of Indiana Jones. I am Joe Stuber, joined by my podcasting partner, Keith Voss. Keith, monumental day here at Further Adventures. We are about to bring Indy's Dark Horse Comics years to a close.
Yeah, that we are, Joe.
Years and mileage.
Years and mileage. We got this indie comic book segment started way back on episode 131 of the IndyCast, June 13th, 2011, actually. And we worked our way through all of those Marvel comics. Then we worked our way through all of the Dark Horse books. We interviewed dozens of people who worked on indie comics for both companies. And now it seems like our review of the book that closed Indy's run at Dark Horse, Indiana Jones Adventures Volume 2, is what we're going to be bringing you guys today.
Yep, a lot of years, a lot of mileage, and a lot of comic books, a lot of comic book guests. Two of those guests worked on this very book. Writer Mark Evanier, that's our interview, IndyCast episode 203. That was the Indie Talk. My full interview with Mark, it's over at Comic Book Central at comicbookcentral.net, episode 53. You can check out the full interview. We talk about a bunch of things. And of course, the last time you and I got together, Raven's Nest visit from the great artist Ethan Beavers. So now it is our turn. What did we think of Indiana Jones Adventures Volume 2? Yep, we're going to spoil the book for you, as we always do. I'm sure everybody out there has read it by now. Man, maybe, Keith, maybe there's some new listeners out there, some people new to Indiana Jones. But yeah, we're going to talk about this tale today. Indiana Jones Adventures Volume 2, published by Dark Horse Comics. Keith, you want to give us the creator rundown?
Yes, this book was released September 16th, 2009. The creative team, we got writer, of course, Mark Evanier. The artist is our good buddy Ethan Beavers, colorist Rhonda Pattison, letterer Michael Heisler, and the cover was by both Ethan Beavers and Rhonda Pattison.
Yeah, that's what a cover that. Oh, I love this cover. I love both covers to the Indiana Jones Adventures, and we've talked about this, but if somebody hasn't heard our past reviews of these, Indiana Jones Adventures Volume 1, especially the cover, definitely Raiders of the Lost Ark vibe. Indiana Jones Adventures Volume 2, Keith, you know where this is from.
This is The Last Crusade all the way. Everything from Indy's tie to the fez-wearing villains.
Yeah.
The whip-wielding across those balconies underneath the full moon. There's so much here to take in, and it's a fantastic cover for Volume 2. This one has a title, Curse of the Invincible Ruby.
Yeah, that's very Indiana Jones like there. And you think about it too. I think we mentioned this sort of trilogy of Volume 1, yes. Temple of Yearning, Mini Adventure, Free Comic Book Day 2009, and then Volume 2. Do you kind of like, okay, so Raiders Volume 1, Temple of Yearning, Temple of Doom,
exactly.
Temple, there's and then Last Crusade. I think this is our like comic book trilogy that harkens to the feature film trilogy. I like it. It just kind of fits. It fits in that mold perfectly, doesn't it?
Fits perfectly in that mold. And like I said during our Temple of Yearning review, I definitely feel like this is sort of like a mini trilogy of Indiana Jones Adventures. I would have liked to have gotten a third full-length volume of these digest-sized adventures. But you know what? If you're able to get your hands on that Temple of Yearning, it fits in kind of nicely right in between these stories. At least it does in my headcanon. So, yeah.
And they're all ages adventures. So, again, you could introduce a younger generation to Indiana Jones. That was the plan at the time. Was in 2008, 2009, Indiana Jones was at a fever pitch. We had the trailer came out, and then the movie came out. and the toys come out, and all the Lego sets, and the video games, everything was coming out, and then kind of interest waned, and that's the thing. It's everything was owned by Lucasfilm at the time. Lucas hadn't sold to Disney yet. So if it had been a Disney property, probably we would have had a ton of Indiana Jones stuff. I mean, look what they did with Star Wars. And they got the Star Wars license, and we got a ton of stuff. Some of it good, some of it bad, but a lot of it. And animated adventures, and just it seemed like nonstop Star Wars stuff. They've even had to dial that back. They've had to put the brakes on it. But I think if this had been a Disney-fied era of Indiana Jones, I think that would have continued. I think we would have got a ton of this stuff. I think this would have been the template for an Indiana Jones Adventures animated series. I talked to Ethan Beavers about this, and coming out of the Star Wars Clone Wars stuff, it was the tie into that. I think Disney would have done the exact same thing with Indiana Jones, and I think they still will.
Yeah, and you know what? And these two volumes, these adventure volumes, like they're very modeled after those Dark Horse Clone Wars adventures. I have a couple of those digest adventures, a couple of the comics. Actually, there was a Clone Wars story in the Temple of Yearning free comic book day issue, and you could definitely tell that that the even from the style, the artwork, they're definitely modeled after those Clone Wars adventures, which were released around, I guess, 2004-ish, 2005.
Yeah. And so, and Ethan mentioned that, like his work on that got him the gig for this. So it seemed like such a natural tie-in. Again, if that had been the Disney era, if that had been that time, I think that's the natural progression of where that would have gone. Especially since it was at a fever pitch when we got these things. But, I think it still will be. I don't know about you, but if nothing else, I think an Indiana Jones animated series could eventually come out of it. This is certainly a good template for it. You mentioned it. Let's get into the adventure itself. It's set in the late spring, early summer of 1931. And a very cool little mini adventure. It follows the template, so we get this little... things happen before we get to Marshall College with Indy.
Yes.
But not Indy here in this little mini adventure. We're set at the New York Museum of History. There's a theft that happens, and Security Chief Valentine Gruber, he's the character that's introduced here. So we see the alarm going off, and a statue is stolen, and we get introduced to Gruber at this particular incident here. Thieves,
it's a stone carving of a crocodile. Let's not forget that, because it's pretty important to the story later on that these are animal carvings.
Right. And so, and again, Ethan talked about like the shadows, and this is a perfect aspect of this. We just see a lot of things happening in silhouette, a lot of good action here coming in. And so this theft of these statues leads us to Indiana Jones at Marshall College, and Marcus comes in and sort of sets the stage for us. They're talking about these Wohat statues, and Gruber doesn't want Indiana Jones involved at all. He doesn't see why he should be brought into it. He says, "I still don't see why I can't handle this myself, Marcus." He says, "Because you can't. That's why." He's got an expert. Marcus has an expert on it. So then we get a little bit of background on these statues.
Yeah, I really like the storyline of this comic. Actually, it does seem very, very indie-like, and again, we get that Marcus coming into Indy's classroom again, right out of Raiders, right out of Last Crusade. So already we're getting the feel. The artwork is fantastic. It remains consistent throughout the book. That's something that I definitely give a plus to throughout this. Like we said in our Tomb of the Gods review, because it gets choppy. Like, the artwork starts out in one style, ends up in a different style. Maybe it takes some people out of the story, maybe not. That's something that this book definitely has no problems with for me. It remains completely consistent. And
it was a one-shot deal, because once you get in the miniseries, they're monthly, so things can happen.
Right.
And with the one-shot deal, you get the whole thing. Again, it kind of reminds me of those like old Archie Digest back in the day. You love
Exactly.
One story all in one shot. You pick it up, and it's
again,
cool.
A very good likeness of Marcus.
Yep. I enjoy it. It's I don't know why. Fantastic. I don't know why over the years we've never gotten a really good one, but definitely Ethan Beavers gets this. And we talk about these statues. We get a little bit of backstory here, sort of the expositional dialogue. Indy says he knows they were crafted in the 16th century. They came from the Ottoman Empire, and that the artisan Wohat was said to be the Emir Ali Bey's closest confidant, and that's how he brings that in. But they sort of tie into something else. these statues put all together. That it's cool that they have them, but Indy knows that there's something else beyond this, and that's where we get the title, The Curse of the Invincible Ruby.
Right, the Ruby of Ali Bey. So apparently, if you possess this ruby, Ali Bey believed it made him invincible.
Yeah.
So of course, I'm sure around this time, a lot of people are going to be looking for something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, we got the Grail, we got the Ark,
Well, and you notice the splash page picture too of this too. It mentions about it was that invincibility that led to the pillaging of Greece and parts of Austria, as well as big chunks of Europe, creating the Ottoman Empire. Great artwork there, but you notice he's holding it in a bag.
Yes.
He's holding the ruby in a bag, and that's a key plot point that's going to play in later. Because I was kind of thinking this too as we kind of go through, because we know. Look, we get to the end of the adventure, spoiler alert, but a lot of Indiana Jones stuff is going to happen to somebody that gets the ruby. But I did notice that he is holding it in a bag in this one too. So, did that actually happen? Who knows? But Indy knows that that's the myth, that's the fable, and could be the prize at the end of this. And don't forget, 1931, we're setting this in Fortune and Glory Indy days. And it is that different Indiana Jones as we go through too. Obviously, Gruber doesn't want him to go to go find it, but he does. And
he doesn't even believe in the ruby's powers.
No, not that. He just wants the statues.
Right.
Yeah. And some good college stuff here too. We get the students who were enamored by Indiana Jones. We saw that play out in Raiders of the Lost Ark with the, I love you on the eyelids.
Right.
We still see
wish
that.
You'd look at the way he looks at ancient ruins.
Right.
But we do get a very small, I thought it belonged to the museum. Not exactly how he meant it when he would say it in Last Crusade, but it is still a nice callback to Last Crusade. Again, this volume 2 of Indiana Jones Adventures, very, very, very much along the lines of being the Last Crusade of this series.
Yep, and we have the perfect image of Indy in his office. That's taken directly from Last Crusade. A lot of good stuff. So, yeah, Indy gets a telegram. He's going to be headed to Barcelona. We get that adventure going there. Again, those shadows, all those things playing out, the beams of light going through. And he meets up with Gruber again as we get there.
Yeah, and Indy's not quite sure what he's doing there. He was it seemed like Indy thought he was only interested in the crocodile statue. Turns out Gruber thinks that these robberies are connected, so in his mind, if you find one of these statues, you're going to find them all. So it looks like Indy has a new sidekick. Yeah,
and he's definitely in deeper than he let on to begin with. So many uses of the whip in this. I love, because that's kind of difficult too. Because like how often I think maybe a couple of whip references in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, but it's used really frequently here, and definitely that Last Crusade vibe. But the different
him going through the window,
right.
The window. I mean,
that's
it's just
the perfect thing.
It's straight out of it.
Yeah, but again, that different Indy where he just leaves Gruber behind. These guys attack both of them when they're in the museum, and he says, "Indy, help me! Yeah, I thought we were a team." And he's like, "Sorry, Gruber, I'm out of here." He just leaves him behind. I think like late 30s, 40s Indy would have rescued him, whereas this Indy is just like, "I'm out of here."
Yeah, I mean, I kind of get it.
He's kind of working for Gruber, isn't he? Like, he was hired to help, or he was brought in by Marcus to help out Gruber?
I guess.
And he kind of leaves him a bit.
At this point, I think Indy just wants to sort of work alone.
Well, he does, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so I think Gruber's just going to slow him down, and I think he feels that way too.
Yeah, I think so too. But so Indy, as we go through, he sort of like, gets knocked out, but he kind of sort of wants to be knocked out, or at least, looks like he was taken out by these thugs because he wants to be able to follow them back and find out really what's going on. And it's very cool that it seems like many Indiana Jones roads lead to Belloc.
Yes, it does.
So we have him in Volume 1 and we have him in Volume 2 here, so that's pretty cool.
So again, a nice prequel, some prequel stories with these adventures of showing us a history of Indy and Belloc, so we can understand a little bit more where they're at when we see them in Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah.
Fantastic stuff.
And he knows that Belloc's tied into this. He kind of gets back to his hotel. He overhears the conversation going, and he knows he was working with these thugs that they kind of took him out,
They do make a little joke about Belloc's name with a Q at the end, or else they probably call him Baloche,
Beloche. So Indy is able to sneak into his room. He finds the statues there. But again, the cool thing about Indy is he knows all about these things, and it's not so much the statues as maybe what's beneath them.
Yeah, but he gets to steal from Belloc this time.
Yeah. Turn those tables.
The tables
but
around.
Don't you get that, like, their adventures over the years, it's kind of like been a back and forth between these two. It's like,
Always
look,
a
I know
back
you're
and
going to be there. You know I'm going to be there. It depends on who's going to get the upper hand. And then it culminates with the Ark of the Covenant. That was the biggest prize that either of them have ever gone after. And as it turns out, neither one of them got it.
Well, Belloc definitely got something for sure. For sure.
Yeah,
he got
knowledge, insight.
Sure.
Yeah, and,
that's right. That's right.
Melted Jello pudding and exploding heads and cheesy '80s special effects back in the day.
Oh, those frightened me as a kid. They frightened me.
They did. Yeah.
Oh my goodness!
Of course it did. Maybe it's time to watch Raiders again. But okay, so we do get sort of these little back adventures between Indy and Belloc. It's ultimately Indy finds these statues. Belloc had them, and there's like this key to finding everything on the bottom of these statues. That's where the real adventure takes place. And Indy knows how to put all these things together. It takes him to Kenya. Again, we go back into the jungles. We talked about that with Temple of Yearning, that very cool Indiana Jones setting in the jungle. He loses the tie this time. Of course, he can't have the tie in the jungle. But we got Indy with a machete.
He not only loses his tie, he loses his hat. We got more monkeys.
Oh, I love the monkeys. Not CGI monkeys. We got comic book monkeys.
Not CGI monkeys. We got comic monkeys that take Indy's hat.
They do. But we also get Indiana Jones doing a Tarzan yell. I don't know how that would have played in the movie. I don't know if Harrison Ford could pull it off. We know James Bond did it in Octopussy. I think it was an Octopussy. I think because he was going through the jungle.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, they did the Tarzan yells swinging through.
Oh, but it's great. I mean, the artwork here, though.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah,
Indiana Jones
the
with a
artwork
machete.
on these pages. Yeah, hacking through wiping the sweat from his brow, and then like that last panel on that page, the shadowing. Yeah. It just. Oh my goodness, it's fantastic.
But don't you love how this adventure kind of gets an opportunity to breathe in between these things? It's not just boom, 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 boom. You get like those things you mentioned, like Indy wiping the sweat off his brow, or just even trying to figure out the combination to try to get in these things. And it's like, you get those like 4 panels where he's like trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
Let's see how much of this language I remember. He's looking over. He's just trying to figure everything out. And we get the sense that he is thinking about things, and he's just like, maybe I can't figure it out.
And you do get a sense of, like, even in the moments in the films where he's thinking about how to get out of a certain situation, or you could definitely see the wheels turning in this a bit more.
Well, wasn't that in Temple of Doom when he when he sees the statue when they're going through the jungle, and Short Round's like, what do you see, Dr. Jones? And
don't come up here.
Right.
That's right.
Indy's kind of figuring it out, and he's playing it out in his mind. You see that, and then all of a sudden it dawns on him. This is not good.
There's something else going on here.
Yeah. And so those moments get to breathe in this comic book adventure. It's an all ages comic book. It's for kids. And it's just like so many of those things harken back to the movies that we love. So I dig it. I dig it.
Same here.
So Indy is able to figure out after, 16 tries or something like that, or 15 tries?
16th attempt, yep.
Yeah, he figures out the combination of how these statues go in place. And it turns out like that's what the bad guys have been wanting all along. They had the stuff, but they didn't have the knowledge that Indy has. They didn't know how to figure all these things out. So they kind of like let him play into it. So again, we go back to originally, we talked about Ali Bey. We've got Ali Bey Fazal, a descendant. That's been the bad guy all along. He's been going. He knew the ruby was there. He knew that this was the ultimate prize that they were trying to get after, and that's what he wanted. He wanted this ruby all along.
Yeah, and he was playing a game with Belloc essentially too, like just kind of basically waiting to see who gets there first.
Yeah,
and,
they're all playing each other.
They're all playing each other, and there's an interesting scene here, or an interesting moment where Bey Fazal says, now since we have no further need for you, and Indy says something interesting. I can't believe Belloc ordered my death. And Faisal says, no, that was my idea. So Belloc didn't really want him dead. I don't think Belloc wants him dead. I think they have a bit of a rivalry that goes beyond that. They it's almost like a game between the two of them.
It is. That ends in Raiders for sure.
That
Because
ends in Raiders for
he
sure.
definitely wants Indy dead in Raiders. A couple of times he leaves him, definitely in the Well of the Souls. He leaves him to his death. He did not think Indy was getting out of that. But at this time, just more, I don't want to say peers, but like really competitive peers and just, dastardly. Again, we've talked about this before. It depends on, if this tale were being told from Belloc's perspective, Belloc would probably be the hero.
Yes.
He was working with whoever,
especially in this
paid.
Comic.
Yeah.
Especially in this comic. I mean, you got Jones, stealing those statues right out of his hotel room and not doing it in the most honest of ways.
Exactly.
Honest of ways. He calls the operator, gets the hotel number, gets the room number from the hotel, and it basically goes in and just steals everything from him.
But we've seen that play out in some. I can't remember what movie I was watching the other day, but it was like somebody went up and said, "Oh, I forgot my room key," and they're like, you don't do that today.
Yeah,
but back then it always seemed like somebody would let somebody into their room that forgot their key or something.
We're talking 1931 though, so things might have been slightly different back then.
I think it was a movie from the 50s or 60s I was watching. What? I think it was a Bond film I was watching. I think it was a Connery Bond film. I think he kind of pulled that stunt in there as well. So you could do that back in the day. You can get into somebody's room. Look, they all get into the temple, and the art is just spectacular through here.
I love the art here.
I want every one of these panels as like artwork on my wall. It's so cool, and really a Temple of Doom vibe as we go through here. There's one page that's almost that teaser poster from Temple of Doom. Doesn't have Indy in it, but we've got some of the other guys in it. But it's almost that the light coming in, splashing from behind into the temple doorway. It's so much good stuff.
Yes.
We got spider webs. We've got skeletons.
We got that one panel too of what that looks like the fertility idol.
Yeah.
That when they're walking through, you see Indy's what looks like Indy and Gruber's shadows on the wall, and it looks like right in the foreground, it looks like the fertility idol as they walk by.
Yeah. Again, there's some,
which I thought was great.
Well, and just too, even you think about like the Well of the Souls and how Indy and Sala's silhouettes were cast on the the walls of the tomb and things like that. We see that kind of playing out here, and it breathes. All these like panels with no dialogue or anything. You could almost see like the animated series. These things kind of playing out. They shoot a skeleton.
That's wearing a fedora. Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
but yeah, you could definitely hear like in those moments of like Indy and Gruber in the shadows with the torch, you could just hear like those background noises of the cave. Your imagination runs wild with this artwork and with this story, and that's something that these books really bring to life.
It does. So eventually they find the ruby. They find this here, and here, it turns out, Gruber was in on it all along.
Yes. He's basically our main villain at this point.
Yeah, they all switch on each other. They've all been using each other. Gruber wanted this thing, to be. He set up the theft at the beginning of his own statue to go into all these things. So he pulls the gun on Indiana Jones after they had fallen through and Gruber was knocked out, which plays into it because the gun is worthless because when he was knocked out, Indy made sure he took all the bullets out. So there's really no danger. But again, Indiana Jones 10 steps ahead of everybody else. And Gruber wants that ruby for himself, but he makes the mistake of grabbing it.
Yes, and we don't quite... I mean, it just incinerates him. We don't really quite know what happens because we just see his body just sort of...
It's an all-ages book. He is no more. He has ceased to be.
No more. Yeah, that's right. That's right. But then we see Indy looking at kind of like the pile of ashes that used to be Gruber. And he again, very much like Last Crusade, he appeals to Bephaziel like he did with Elsa, says, leave this. This whole place is about to come down. Forget this ruby. Come with me.
No,
and
that's why Fazel's there.
I'm not leaving without the ruby. No. And as Indy says, it looks like he's not leaving at all.
And the whole temple comes down in on itself.
Exactly.
We've seen that play out in some other Indiana Jones adventures as well. Indy knows when to get out of Dodge. He just knows when to get out of it. And a very cool moment here, almost that when he's looking at the ruins of the temple there, that kind of reminds me a little bit of the end of Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Yeah, exactly. Again, some great artwork here.
And as he's like walking back through the jungle, we get those different beats, and there's even like a really cool aspect of, what is it, like a cheetah?
It's like a cheetah killing like a gazelle or something.
But he's dragged it up
tree branch.
to the tree, and it's.
I mean, the details are just amazing throughout this comic. Absolutely amazing. And not only does he see that cheetah eating a gazelle, he also runs into Belloc.
Yeah, he does. He kind of beat Belloc to it, and he's like, "Hey, you want the ruby? I kind of know where it is, but you might need to do a little digging to go get it."
Exactly.
He just gets another one up on him, but it's just so cool to see these characters play out again. Because we're really with Belloc, we only have Raiders of the Lost Ark. I think there's a mention in Young Indy. I don't think they ever. He was never like in Young Indy, right?
I think he was supposed to be. They were supposed to be a Crystal
if
Skull.
It had gone on. Yeah,
there was supposed to be another Crystal Skull. Some episodes exploring.
Yeah.
Belloc and the Crystal Skulls and stuff like that, but that they never got around to it, unfortunately.
Yeah. And the novels, I mean, but to be able to see him, to be able to see Indy and Belloc interacting on previous adventures.
Didn't happen very often.
No. So we have him in the Indiana Jones Adventures Volumes 1 and 2. These are two of my favorites. These are two of my favorites of all time. And throw in Temple of Yearning, too, a little 6-page mini-adventure. Really good stuff from Dark Horse to close out. I mean, obviously it ended their run with the license on Indiana Jones, but boy, what a way to go out.
Absolutely. Perfect way to go out. I wish, again, sound like a broken record here. I wish there were more, but happy with what we got. Again, a mini trilogy of some of the better Indiana Jones adventures, closing out those Dark Horse years. Let's hope, again, with Indy 5, we'll get a resurgence of indie comics. Maybe we'll get some more of these digest-sized comics. But I guess we're just gonna have to wait and see.
Yeah, we have what we have, and they're good. So
That's
some final thoughts. Let's encapsulate them as a whole. I think you and I, it's safe to say we both like Volume 1 better.
Yes.
As Ethan mentioned, punching Nazis.
Yeah, exactly.
He got to punch Nazis in that one. That's so cool. That was a really cool adventure. But I think I like Volume 1 a little bit better than Volume 2, but I love both of these.
So do I. I also really love Temple of Yearning for what it is. Again, fun little middle story there.
Yeah.
But I think I'm going to have to agree with you. I think Volume 1 is a bit stronger. Again, indie punching Nazis, like you said, but a big time Last Crusade vibe going into Volume 2. Just a nice little look into some of these unseen adventures of Indy. We all want to see more of Indiana Jones in comic book form, on the big screen, radio dramas, however we want to do it. We just want more of this character, and if it's to this caliber, then I'll be a happy man.
Well, those are our thoughts on this adventure and some of the past adventures that we've talked about. We've had our reviews. You've heard all of those. But let's check out the mailbag to hear some of your thoughts on these Indiana Jones tales.
Mister, get your arm out of that mailbox. I mean now.
Oh, dear me. I haven't had so much trouble delivering a package since the incident in Vienna.
We've got a couple of reviews in the mailbag. Actually, these are continuations from previous emails. These folks were nice enough to send in reviews for multiple books, so Keith and I are breaking these up to match up with our reviews I heard today. First, we heard from Alex Levitsky regarding Indie Adventures Volumes 1 and 2. Alex says, it's funny because these two volumes could really almost fool you into thinking they're not quite worth the read, especially since they look more like the old Disney Kids booklets they used to kick out. But they're actually a lot of fun and really worth sitting down and giving some good fan-filled, passionate attention to. In fact, I even remember someone writing in about Indiana Jones and the Bridge to Yesterday and asking about an item that Marcus picks up in Indy's basement saying, "I thought you lost it in Calcutta," because they were wondering if that was a reference was being thrown to these two Indiana Jones Adventures volumes. Anyway, love the reviews. Talk soon, old friends. That is from Alex. Thanks for writing in, Alex. Keith, thoughts on that? You would know all about Indiana Jones and the Bridge to Yesterday.
It could be. Who knows? Indy has lost lots of artifacts over the years, and it definitely could be a nice way to connect those two tales. So I'll say yes. That's exactly what we were going for.
Little revisionist history there.
So yes, that's exactly what we were doing. So yeah, cool.
You knew it all along.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks for writing in, Alex. Always great to hear. We also heard from Steve Rivers. Steve writes, "Hey, Joe and Keith, Indiana Jones Adventures Volume 2 was a much better adventure than Tomb of the Gods, in my opinion. Had a good story with the animal statues being stolen, and it all leading right back to Belloc. Good settings and good traditional indie adventure. Even though aimed at younger readers, it was actually better than Tomb of the Gods, in my opinion. Thank you, gentlemen. Talk to you soon." Yeah, you know what? It seems like not so many people were as big a fan of Tomb of the Gods as we were, but that's all right, sometimes you get good, sometimes you get bad.
I liked them all. I thought they were all amazing. But look, all the cool Indiana Jones stuff that we don't get in the films. I mean, we talk about Tomb of the Gods, we get Indiana Jones and sharks, Indy in the snow. We got some Indy in the snow this last time. We got Indy punching Nazis. Well, we've seen that before, but we always like that in Volume 1.
Exactly.
And so many new characters coming into these different things. Boy, look, if you're looking for something to do, if you're looking for something to read, if you haven't read these adventures from Dark Horse Comics, go get them. They're amazing stuff, and the artwork is fantastic. I do want to mention, too, we talk about Ethan Beaver's art a lot. If you haven't heard the interview, go check it out on the last IndyCast, but ethanbeavers.com. ETHEN, beavers.com, it's going to check out, and ethanbeavers.com/Indiana-Jones. Very cool artwork there, and Ethan, he has produced a lot of children's books involving Star Wars, Star Trek characters, DC Comics characters, really good stuff out there. So, it's like teaching your kids to get over fear of the dark, or how to go to sleep. I think it's Good Night Batman, and teaching kids how to count with teaching kids the alphabet with the Star Trek crew. There's so many good things out there. So check out his books as well. Check those out and go buy his stuff and get these Indiana Jones adventures if you don't have them. And we also heard from Chris A. IJ in the UK. We always love having his reviews come in. So let's check out Chris's thoughts on Indiana Jones Adventures Volume 2, Curse of the Invincible Ruby.
A British tar is a soaring soul, as free as a mountain bird.
No time for a third volume, Dr. Jones. Hi, Joe and Keith. Chris A. from the UK here, with a review and a lament after reading Indiana Jones Adventures Volume 2 from Dark Horse, The Curse of the Invincible Ruby. I suppose first off, I have to point out that sadly I couldn't find any real UK links in this story, apart from poor Marcus, of course, who only appears at the beginning and doesn't follow Indy along for the adventure this time. The story itself I found less enthralling than Volume 1, but at least this felt like a fully formed and rounded adventure which didn't stop short of the Red Line Trail, which the first Adventures tale from Dark Horse did in some ways. My favourite panels in Volume 2 was where Indy was just thinking and contemplating the puzzles before him at the Kenyan temple.
Think of something.
And it's a 4-split page of his face in various shadows and silhouettes, which Mr. Beavers spoke of in your interview last episode. A couple of them even have Indy's eyes looking like they have a superhero mask over them, just like the Phantom wore.
What happened? Yes. Belloc, you want to hear about it? Not at all.
It was great to see Belloc back too, but also good to have the two new bad guys of Valentine Gruber and Ali Bey Faisal. And after all, why wouldn't Belloc have had Fall Guys to do his dirty work for him?
Hey, hey, I might jump an open drawbridge or Tarzan from a vine, 'cause I'm the unknown stuntman.
Incidentally, I chuckled at a small Crystal Skull connection I made when in Kenya Indy does his Tarzan swing through the trees with monkeys. Does this help Indy 4 haters to come round to being more tolerant of Mutt's swinging escapades in Crystal Skull, I wonder? Whoa. Once Indy hits Kenya, I got that Temple of Yearning vibe once again in the artwork. It was great hearing your interview with Ethan Beavers last IndyCast episode, and I also loved hearing that he's willing to take commissions from indie fans too. My lament for this review though comes not that there wasn't more UK links in the story, but that there wasn't a full Volume 3 that followed this. To me, 3 has always been the magic number, and it's a shame that the Indiana Jones Adventures at Dark Horse ran to only a duo of volumes. Now, setting Temple of Yearning aside, I did wonder if we as an indie community could get together a Kickstarter campaign to write and fund a 3rd volume in the Indiana Jones Adventures series and raise enough funds to get Mr. Beavers to commit his coloured pens to paper once more.
There's a picture of it right here. That's it.
I'll leave that thought with you both, Joe and Keith. I've really had fun reviewing this particular series along with you guys, but this is Chris A from the UK, swinging on out with the Monkeys.
And that was a wrap for the Indiana Jones license at Dark Horse. 1991 through 2009. Great run for the company on this. Hopefully Marvel is going to bring back Further Adventures of Indiana Jones now that all things Lucasfilm and Marvel are under the Disney banner. But even if they don't, we've still got a lot to talk about. We've got a few more things cooking if and until that happens.
Yes, we do. We've already got one read-along adventure out there based on the Facing Death mini-adventure in Indiana Jones and the Lost Treasures magazine, if anybody remembers that. We also have the voiceovers recorded for the second mini-adventure, Skullduggery, it's called. Finding time for Joe to put that all together has been the tricky part, but fear not. It is on the way.
I might have some time now.
Yes, everything is recorded and ready to go. So eventually, you guys are going to get that really cool mini adventure. You know, back like you got the record mini adventures back in the '80s when it says, "Please turn the page at the sound of the whip crack." So we got one more of those coming for you guys as well. And of course, we'll be reviewing both of those mini adventures at some point here on the IndyCast.
Yeah, so the Dark Horse stuff proper done away with, so we put that to bed. But yeah, those are out there. So that's going to be fun. We've got those to look forward to. Yeah, and I do have a little bit of time here, so I'm going to try to get that read. I'm going to try to get that read along out. But until then, we're going to take a little bit of time off from the segment. But we just gave you back to back episodes here, so you get a bunch there. Maybe we'll record some other conversations with other IndyCasters. I know there's going to be a lot to talk about at some point. Check in with everybody, see how they're doing. So we'll get creative here. By the way, if you missed any of our reviews and interviews over these segments, the Marvel years, the Dark Horse years, go back and check them out. Handy dandy episode guide is in the About section of the Facebook page. And if you folks out there, if you have any ideas, things we might have forgotten, things have fallen through the cracks, or you want to give us your thoughts on the Marvel run, the Dark Horse run, or anything indie comic booky. Look, we've also got our 9th anniversary special. We've got that coming up in June. We're going to put together something for that as well. Keith and I always do that. So if there's things you want us to include in there, be sure to let us know about it. Keith, how can they do that?
Drop us a line at thefurtheradventures@gmail.com, or you can record an MP3. We always would love to hear your voice, all your thoughts, and send that along too. Be sure to also check us out on Facebook, The Further Adventures of Indiana Jones. All kinds of cool stuff up there, as you know. Artwork, never before seen stuff. And that's going to be your Further Adventures hub for the time being until we come back on the show with some new stuff to record.
Okay, that's it for the day then.
And that is it for the Dark Horse years. We had a blast reviewing these 4-color adventures of Indiana Jones, and we appreciate all of you out there sending your thoughts in, reading or rereading these comics along with us. We've had an amazing time doing this.
Yes, and of course, a big thanks to all of our guests, all of the fellow IndyCasters, Ed Dallas, to everyone that has joined us for these segments. Joe, big thanks to you putting all these segments together. Couldn't do it without you, of course. Hopefully there's much more to come. We look forward to hanging out with you all once again right here at
The Further Adventures of Indiana Jones.